In the quiet streets of Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, the year 2011 opened like any other. A historic city filled with old Soviet apartment blocks, bookstores, university buildings, and cemeteries dating back centuries. It was a place where scholars lived modest lives, and crime was small-scale and unremarkable. Anatoly Moskvin was born on September 1, 1966, in the Soviet city of Gorky, today known as Nizhny Novgorod. He was highly intelligent, gifted in languages, literature, and history. He grew up shy and sheltered, a boy who spent his days reading books and wandering through neighborhoods alone. But by his own account, something happened when he was a schoolboy that changed him forever. He recalled a funeral procession he encountered as a child for an 11-year-old girl. According to Moskvin, the adults forced him to kiss the face of the dead child lying in her open coffin. He later wrote, "An adult pushed my face down to the waxy forehead of the girl in the embroidered cap, and there was nothing I could do but kiss her." Whether this moment truly occurred as he described, or was later embellished by his imagination, it planted a seed. From that moment on, Moskvin became fascinated with cemeteries, death rituals, and the quiet, solemn world of the dead. As a boy, he and his friends wandered graveyards for fun. But while the others grew out of it, he never did. This interest would one day define and destroy his life. As a young man, Moskvin excelled in school. He studied at Moscow State University and built a reputation as a brilliant philologist and linguist. He was especially drawn to Celtic history, folklore, ancient rituals, and languages. He spoke 13 languages. He wrote books. He taught university students. Colleagues described him as eccentric, but undeniably gifted. Yet despite his academic success, he lived an isolated life. He never married, never dated, never sought close friendships. He lived with his parents into adulthood, spending most of his time reading or walking alone. His apartment was cramped with over 60,000 books and papers, and a growing collection of dolls, harmless enough at first glance. He abstained from alcohol and smoking, prided himself on discipline, and rarely socialized. To outsiders, he was simply a loner, perhaps unusual but never threatening. But Anatoly Moskvin held another identity, one that only very few understood. He called himself a necropolist, an expert on cemeteries. And in the mid-2000s, this obsession grew into something more than study. In 2005, a fellow academic commissioned Moskvin to compile an index of the dead buried in more than 700 cemeteries across the region. It was a monumental task, one that required him to spend years walking from village to village, visiting graveyards on foot. Moskvin embraced the assignment fully, too fully. Over the next 2 years, he claimed he visited 752 cemeteries, walking up to 30 kilometers a day. He slept in abandoned farms, haystacks, and sometimes in the cemeteries themselves. He even spent a night in a coffin awaiting burial, something he wrote about casually, almost proudly. To local police, Moskvin became a familiar face. Patrol officers occasionally questioned him, suspecting vandalism or trespassing. But after he presented his academic credentials, they let him go every time. No one imagined he was doing anything worse than taking notes for a history project. But those long days and nights in graveyards weren't just research. They were feeding something inside him. Moskvin began scouring obituaries for recently deceased young girls. When he felt a connection, he visited their graves. He slept atop them at night. And eventually, he claimed the children gave him permission to take them. Psychiatrists would later conclude that Moskvin suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. By then, the damage was already done. For nearly 2 decades, he exhumed bodies, unknown to everyone around him, and brought them home. What investigators found in his apartment in 2011 defied imagination. 26 mummified bodies of girls, initially reported as 29, were scattered throughout the cramped, book-filled rooms. Some sat on shelves. Some leaned against walls. Some were placed on sofas like silent children. Each had been carefully preserved, dried out with salt and baking soda, wrapped, stuffed with rags to fill their shrinking forms, given wax masks or fabric faces, painted with nail polish. From a distance, they looked like oversized homemade dolls. But up close, investigators could see the truth behind the paint and stitches. These were human remains. Moskvin's parents, who frequently traveled and were away for long periods, claimed they had no idea the dolls were once real children. They assumed their eccentric son simply enjoyed crafting. Inside, police found maps of cemeteries, grave tokens, metal nameplates stolen from headstones, and instructions for doll making. Dozens of photos of open graves and exhumed bodies were discovered. Police suspected him of desecrating up to 150 graves. Moskvin insisted he never harmed anyone. He said all the girls were already dead. He said he believed he could bring them back to life, and that he was preserving them so they would have bodies to return to. To him, they were his children. To the world, they were victims of an unimaginable violation. Moskvin cooperated without resistance. He calmly explained how he mummified the bodies, how he chose which children to take. There was no anger in his voice, no fear, no guilt. Investigators described the scene as exceptional and unparalleled. Even veteran forensic teams struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. Moskvin was charged with desecrating graves and abusing the bodies of the dead, crimes that carried up to 5 years in prison. But prosecutors soon realized this case was far beyond criminal intent. Psychiatric evaluations concluded that he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, delusions, and a deep break from reality. He was declared legally insane and unfit to stand trial. Instead, he was sentenced to compulsory psychiatric treatment, to be re-evaluated periodically. Over the next decade, every review extended his stay. Doctors continued to argue he was too unstable, too unpredictable, too mentally unwell to return to society. In 2018, doctors briefly suggested he might be eligible for outpatient treatment, but a new evaluation in early 2019 reversed that opinion. The hospital withdrew its petition. He remains institutionalized to this day. What drove Moskvin to do what he did? In interviews, he said he wanted children, specifically a daughter, but was denied adoption due to his low income and reclusive lifestyle. He said he felt lonely, misunderstood. He believed he could one day use science, magic, or ritual to bring them back to life, and when they returned, he wanted them to feel welcome, to have intact bodies. This rationale was not based on reality, but to Moskvin, it was the absolute truth. The story of Anatoly Moskvin spread around the world not because he was a serial killer, he was not. Not because he was violent, he wasn't. But because what he did challenged every expectation of criminal behavior. The case raised questions about mental illness, obsession, the thin line between eccentricity and pathology, and how someone so respected in academic circles could live a double life of such disturbing magnitude. A man guided not by hatred, but by delusion. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, stay curious and stay safe.